happy to have all of you here, and we look forward to have all of you, whatever participation you would love to inject into this, feel free to do that. As you may know or may not know, Mr. Derek Johnson has been hired, Derek Johnson and Associates, we've been hired to draw the lines for Hinds County. And in that he is here, I'm going to have him, one of the house chores that we got to do is make sure that we're going to have a sign-in sheet, and I believe it's already going around, and we're going to make sure everybody gets signed up. But now we will have Mr. Johnson come and present, after which time we will listen to any and all comments that may come forward.
Good evening. As you all know, every 10 years, after the taking of the census, every jurisdiction that elect individuals from districts or wards are required to evaluate whether or not they will have to redraw district lines to comply with the requirement of one person, one vote. The requirement of one person, one vote for local and state district lines, meaning that the largest district cannot be any larger than 10% of the smallest district within any jurisdiction. And that requirement, if it is larger than 10%, that jurisdiction would have to redraw the boundary lines to ensure that the weight of every voter is equal. As a result of that, the Hinds County Board of Supervisors, after evaluating the census data as released by the Census Bureau, has determined that, in fact, Hinds County districts are malapportioned. Because they are malapportioned, the county, Hinds County will be required to go through the process of redistricting. In that process of redistricting, there's an opportunity to receive input from the public to determine the criteria by which you would like to see the district lines drawn. This is the opportunity for the public to submit plans of how you would like to see the district lines drawn, or to establish what criteria you would like this body to consider as they draw the lines. This is a public hearing for public input. After the public input has been taken, then the members of the Board of Supervisors will consider that input in their deliberations on how the lines will ultimately be drawn. At this time, we would like anyone who would like to come and make comments concerning how you would like to see Hinds County district lines. Before you do that, I'm sorry. The total deviation for the county is 34%. If that exceeds the 10% that is required by federal law. District 1 total population is 51,455. District 2 population is 43,374. District 3's population is 45,189. District 4's population is 64,131. And District 5's total population is 41,136. These districts, the ideal size for all 5 supervisory districts, should be within a 10% deviation of 49,057 people. As a result of this, all 5 districts would have to be reviewed to ensure that they are within the norm of that 49,057 people. With this information in mind, would there be anyone in the audience who would like to provide any input on the criteria that this body should consider as they move forward with redistricting the district lines for the Hinds County Board of Supervisors?
I have a question, please, sir. Do you not have any type of handout that shows by precinct, our current precincts, what the population is as of this current census?
No, that information can be found on the U.S. Census Bureau website. This is a public hearing for input based on, so we can determine the criteria for which you all would like to see the district lines drawn.
Well, if you have no idea what anything is, how can you have input?
Well, the criteria is the set of principles that established that will guide the members of this body to determine what will be in the best interest of the county. This process is the same process that was established by the state of Mississippi as the Joint Reapportionment Committee went across the state twice now to receive input from communities to determine the criteria the legislature should use. During those public hearings, it was a time for the members of the legislative body to hear from the community on the type of criteria you all would like to see. Criteria such as drawing districts with community interest, criteria such as making sure that districts are contiguous. Those are the basic principles of redistricting. That is the type of input that this body is seeking to receive to ensure that they draw the line consistent with the input of the public.
One other question, sir.
Go ahead.
Has there been any proposed plans submitted by the Board of Supervisors that they would like to see done? I mean, that's what ultimately is going to be done. Do we have anything to look at?
The Board of Supervisors at this juncture is waiting to hear from the input of the community before they proceed with providing any input or proposals of plans. Once this public hearing is over, that's when we will proceed with taking into account what has been stated here, the criteria the general public would like to see, and then from there, they will take those things into consideration as they move forward with instructing on how the final district plan should be drawn.
A question and just I guess a couple of questions. Number one, aren't all those criteria you just named part of the statute about what you have to include about contiguity of boundaries and compact and not changing any more than it's needed to, and to stay with it? All those things are part of the criteria that exist. So if that's what we're here to reiterate, my question is, with the filing deadline 2 weeks away, or a little less than 2 weeks away, and with this high value contract you've got that's paying 3 times what it ought to be worth, we ought to be looking at plan today rather than a month and a half after you got awarded the contract to be coming in here to start talking about what the input we have, when the input we have has to fit within all those boundaries of what the statute says.
Well, I'm not familiar with statute that lay out the criteria for redistricting. There are generally accepted principles that many bodies use as criteria, but every jurisdiction has to establish the criteria in which they're using to do the district lines. There have been Supreme Court decisions that laid out a set of criteria that could be considered, but many jurisdictions can or may decide not to use all of those criteria. This is an opportunity to specifically identify how the citizens of this county would like to proceed with the redistricting process, and to allow this body to be informed by that information as they deliberate on the plan final passage.
Okay, if that's the case, my continued question is, we're in the middle of February. I know this, we didn't get the information until the 1st of February, but we had preliminary information in November. Why are we just now coming in here to start getting the criteria that we want to do when we got a filing deadline coming up on March the 1st?
Well, unfortunately, the Census Bureau was only required to release the data at the beginning of April 1st. If you look around the state of Mississippi, there have been very few, if any, jurisdictions that have had public hearings. Secondly, we are at the same place that most jurisdictions in this state is in terms of the state legislators did not find in their wisdom to push back the qualified deadline as they did for the members of the legislators. As a result of that, there was a very short window. There is a very short window for the county to, one, get the information for the Census Bureau, evaluate the information, and establish a public hearing. Once information was released, then they had to make the decision of whether or not redistricting will be required. There is no preliminary data that this county could have used, as no county could have used, because the only data that is important is the data that was released by the Census Bureau.
Well,
The final census data was just released less than 10 days ago.
They awarded the contract to redistrict back in January before it was released, and evidently we knew we had to do it because they awarded the contract.
As a result of the final release of the information, this body has now reviewed the information. They've established a time for the public hearing. They properly did the notice in the paper, and we're here today. Our goal is to try to move forward as expeditiously as possible, but respecting the input of the public, as this body has deemed necessary to instruct them to move forward.
May I ask one more question, please?
There's a hand in the back.
Is this going to be the only
Want to
time?
stand and give your name?
Leslie Morton, is this the only time there's going to be public input, or are we going to get to have input after some proposed districts have been redrawn?
Well, there will have to be a decision of the Board of Supervisors after this. I'm not at a place to make that determination now. Many bodies have established a public hearing on the front end, like the state legislature, they've established a public hearing on the front end, and then from there, it allows the legislators to deliberate on what the district should look like. The next time for the state redistricting process, that the public would see what the final plan what a plan looked like, is when a bill is submitted in both the Senate and the House.
But there wouldn't be another time for just local Hinds County.
I don't have an answer to that. That's an answer for the board, and for that, they will have to vote for that to take place.
We have not made that decision. However, I would think that, with the sentiment of this board, that we will, once we get, some information and some proposed, drawing that we would, consider. And I have not myself talked to the board members, but that's not something that we have ruled out. Well, let me ask you, and then I get back to you.
My name is Gerald Kusha. This is a public hearing, and as I understand it, the notice was supposed to be published several days ahead of time. Where was it published, and why wasn't this meeting more made public to the?
It was published, how many times? 3 times in the Clara Ledger and in Jackson Avenue.
It was published in Jackson
And,
well, I'm not sure whether it was published in Jackson. It was published in Jackson.
I think we said both. Can you recall? I'm sure it was Clara Ledger and the rotating paper, which is Sarah. Where was it published?
I didn't either, because I'm not sure. I was out during the time it was published, but I saw it in Jackson Avenue.
Can somebody give me the dates on when that was done?
It had to have been, how many times does the law require that you publish, what, 3 times or 2?
I don't know of a specific law as to how.
I know we published it more than 1 time. I do know that now. I'm sorry.
I attended one the other Saturday.
Huh?
That didn't have anything to do with this.
But again, my question is, when was it published? I'm not saying that it wasn't. I'm just wanting to know when that it was and in what publication was it run.
Okay, it was. Well, where all was it published?
We published in the Jackson Free Press. Jackson Avenue, thank you. And there was one other.
I think it was Clara Ledger.
I believe it was the Clara Ledger. I'm not positive of the exact date. They were published in 2 publications, and then we also publicized the hearing on our website today.
Today?
It wasn't
This
that
afternoon.
No,
afternoon.
just today.
Late this afternoon, because I looked at it at 5 o'clock and I couldn't find it.
But we
That's
did
ridiculous.
fulfill the legal requirements in publishing it in our newspapers.
Okay, even then we have
Me,
yeah.
in light of the fact that we have nothing to look at,
Nothing.
we have a qualifying deadline in a week from today. Do you intend to extend, as I understand, the legislature has given you the option to extend the time frame to have qualification? Like you could go to June 1st or you could go to May 1st.
Yeah, you can go to June 1st.
June 1st.
Do you have the intention of extending that qualifying deadline so as to allow potential candidates to see the actual districts that they would be running in? Or do you plan to run in the current seats?
I can't say the board have not made, at this point, have not made that.
Is there an option to run in the current districts?
According to the state legislature, they did not push back the qualified
I
deadline for board
understand that.
supervisors.
But they
They
gave
did,
the option.
however, push back the qualified deadline for their elections.
I
There
understand
was
that.
no option given to the counties. Today, you will see, read the paper where the Madison County Board of Supervisors, they have decided to incur an additional expense to file an injunction in federal court in order to push back the deadline. In order for this county to push back the qualified deadline, it will be a cost-benefit analysis, whether or not they want to incur the additional expense to file an injunction in federal court to push it back. They have no other legislative authority to push it back. There was no option given by the legislator. It is a legal process that this body will have to make a decision on to push it back and file an injunction with the federal court.
In light of that situation, then do you intend to run under the current lines? Because it is totally unfair to anybody that wants to run for elective office when they have no idea if they even live in the district. So do you plan on running into current lines this year and possibly rerunning next year under new lines?
Well,
Because it cannot be done physically and
we don't
logistically.
know that. Of course, we know we can't, district ourselves, draw ourselves out, but we don't know whether, knowing that we got a 34% variation, we know that we gotta move some lines. Now, whatever lines are going to be drawn, in my opinion, I don't know. The lady behind you, if you don't mind, she had a hand for a long time and then
I'm Margaret Morris Jackson, and I said we can get information on the criteria needed to redistrict. But what I'm wondering is whether or not we can get information showing what is in existence right now, for instance, a map showing the population distribution within the districts right now, so that we would have an idea of what would have to be moved. And so
we don't have a map, but we do have the numbers by district according to what the census gave.
Okay, but they would be distributed throughout the district. There would be some areas which would be more heavily populated. And I don't know if...
We can't get this broken down by precinct?
that was my...
Yeah, that's not precinct.
No, we can't
No,
get
this
this
is
by
about
precinct. This is
Okay,
strictly
you
by
said that's our
district.
precinct?
I was able to provide any information that's directed by the board of supervisors or whatever you want to say.
We don't have it here tonight, I know I don't, but we can, I'm sure we'll provide that information. Okay, Pete?
I want to address what Mr. Johnson said a minute ago. The legislature did not provide for this in their legislation. However, the legislature, and I talked to both chairmen there, both Mr. Sunberg and Representative Reynolds, they provided that any county that felt like they were going to need to redistrict, a lot of counties weren't going to have to redistrict because they didn't have that much change, could go to court, it doesn't have to be federal court, and just basically file a request to extend the deadline. Hancock County's done it, Madison County's doing it, DeSoto County's doing it, several others doing it. They can move to June 1. And that was the intent of the legislature when they passed that. If you go talk to the legislature, they will tell you that. But so that there is the possibility to do it, and the cost is probably about $25. I'll give you a copy of the filings that they've done in all these other counties if you'd like to have it, so that all you have to do is copy the change the county name and go to court. The question is, if you don't move the filing date, then you're going to run under the existing lines, or else we will go to court. And if you run under the district line, the existing lines, you'll run again next year, and then the cost will be there for that. Or we will go to court. I mean, that's just fact. I mean, we know that's the case. But now that we've waited this long to get to this point where a week and a half before the filing deadline, and other counties who got their information at the same time, Mr. Johnson, have done and prepared lots of maps and have things ready for their people to look at. Because I've been in those counties and seen them. And so it is possible to have them. We don't have them here in Hinds County, and I'm disturbed. I came to this meeting thinking I'd get to see some idea about what, but we're going to talk about what the criteria is.
But Peter, I'm a little bit shocked myself in that when we initially hired Mr. Johnson, I certainly...
For how much money? For how much money?
$40,000. The amount of money is not important, what I'm getting ready to...
It's very important because it's 2 or 3 times when it ought to be, but go ahead.
Can I give you my information?
Yes, sir.
What I was trying to tell you, we were not aware that the variation would be at the level which means that, which would have been, that we would not have to, move as many lines as we have. Now that we know this, the county, the board does have that option. And I'm not telling you that we won't accept that option.
But my point, George, is over the weekend, in one day, I drew up 3 different plans that would all meet the variation and all the criteria that people always have. I can walk in here and hand you plans that are not that hard to have. You know, that take MapQuest and you can draw them out pretty quick and move the precincts around and do it, because you take the census data, plug it in there, and you can draw it out. It doesn't take that long.
We have you comment. Yes.
Mr. President, being a former candidate, knowing what it takes to run an election, we have a candidate back off here, I think it would just be totally unfair, in the world of unfairness, to draw, not to have the boundaries already drawn before these good-hearted people who want to put their service up before the public have an opportunity. They'll go out and start a campaign based on lines, and they can be easily drawn out of that area that they thought they would be running for. So I agree with Mr. Perry over there. I think that probably the most appropriate thing to do would to move this deadline back so lines can be drawn. Candidates can see if they actually live in the districts, okay? And at that point in time, go on. Now, the flip side of it is that incumbents cannot be drawn out of their districts. So from a practical standpoint, you guys are protected, ladies. Okay, but from a fair protector, the new people who might oppose you might be actually drawn out of their districts just because they decide to run. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I'm sure you're a man of fairness, and that's why the pushing of the deadline seems appropriate.
Excuse me, sir, did you say your name?
Bill Marcy, M-A-R-C-Y.
Any other? Okay. Yeah.
My name is Randy May, and I'm just a lowly citizen in Hinds County. I'm new to all this stuff, so I'm not going to be as eloquent as everybody else. But my question for Derek is, are you qualified to do this? What are your qualifications? What's your experience? Have you done this before?
Yes, I have done it before. The Board of Supervisors reviewed my qualifications, and as a result of that, I was selected.
Very good. Are you also the Derek Johnson that is the president of the NAACP in Mississippi?
I am.
Is that not a conflict of interest?
It is not.
Very good. Then is there also going to be some serious accounting for this $40,000, since we know for a fact it can be done for $20,000, available to us to see how this money is spent? I mean, as a member of the county, I'm concerned about where that money is going.
Certainly, we make sure that whatever amount of public dollars is spent, that is counted.
Okay, so I'll have access to that information.
You'll have once he finishes his work, it becomes public knowledge.
That's fine. It doesn't matter when. I just want a breakdown of it specifically, every penny of it.
Yes. All right.
My name is Laura Van Overshelden, and I live in North Point, North Jackson, and I want to know, since we have this demographics and numbers, why we do not have a map drawn so we know what those lines look like at this point in time. And I also would like to know what the demographics majority were in the census 2000. And I have another question to ask, and I would like to know from Mr. Johnson, what other maps have you drawn and redistricting have you done? And I would also like to know what bids were taken in assimilating and deciding that this person is going to be doing the redrawing.
Well, to start off, during the 2000 round of redistricting, I was the consultant hired for Jackson County, the City of Jackson, Tallahassee County, Walthall County, City of Oklahoma, and several other jurisdictions across the state. The proposal I submitted is a professional service proposal. It's not required under state law to have a bid.
It's not required to have a state law to have a
Professional
bid?
services contract does not fall under the bid required.
Is it required to be on the agenda?
A professional service, we do professional service contracts.
If you're going to award one, is it supposed to be on the agenda of the meeting? If you're going to award such a contract, is that supposed to be on the agenda of the meeting that you publish the agenda?
We have it.
It wasn't on the agenda when you awarded the contract, George.
I didn't quite understand your question. You may be correct. There are times when we, and I've done it.
I'm asking what the law requires. I know you've done it, I'm asking what the law requires.
The first of the month meeting of the Board of Supervisors require that, if you have an item that you want to bring up, it is totally legal to do that. There are certain meetings you have to have, it has to be a enumeration and make sure that it's on the agenda. State law for any Board of Supervisors does not require all particular items to be on the agenda. And the first Monday's meeting of the month.
This was the last of December. This is the last meeting in December, why the first Monday?
That means that it was on the agenda.
It wasn't on the agenda at the last meeting in December when you awarded the contract. No, sir, it wasn't.
It was not on the agenda.
I mean, go check your records, it wasn't there.
Get an iPhone out right now, look, it's not on the agenda. Trust me.
I'm sure that would not be the case. Anyway, we'll
With all due respect, Mr. Smith, you're in
we'll
error.
example that and make-
That is not true.
I would like the answers to the other questions that I've asked, and that is, why do we not have a map where the demographics, majority, minority demographics were put into place in 2000, and I would also like to see what they are and what your projected would be at this point in time.
Well, the reason why there are no maps here, the purpose of this hearing, as I stated earlier, it is to get the input from the citizens of the county for the criteria that should be used for redistricting. So if you would have attended the state legislative joint committee on reapportionment, you would have also found that those meetings were structured just as this, that allow people to come and provide their input on how they would like to see the redrawn of the current map.
I wish to inform you that I was there. I was there, and I did an informant, and I did get information at the time when I asked for it. But I'm asking now what the lines are at this point in time, what they were in 2000, and I would like to know what your projected reapportionment will be in consideration of the map as it now is drawn.
We'll provide all that information to the members of the Board of Supervisors, and as they deem appropriate, they will make that available to the public.
Those meetings that you're referring to were held last fall for the legislative redistricting. They weren't held 2 weeks before the filing deadline. Those meetings were all across the state last fall. They were in October, November, December, and January. They weren't being done now.
That's right.
But in fact, last weekend...
They continue to now, yes.
In fact, last weekend, the legislature, after receiving the data, also had another round of redistricting because the data was being released. Their goal, because the state is so large, and the amount of districts, 174 districts they had to draw, was a much larger task than the 5 districts here. They decided to start early with that process. In this situation, the county engaged someone, myself being that person, in late December. As a result of that, it was the wisdom of the county to move forward once the data was released to evaluate the process to see, in fact, if the county was going to have to redistrict. And once that was determined, then move within the process to allow the redistricting to take place. Are there any more comments or input around the criteria that we should use concerning redistricting? The purpose of this meeting is to ensure that the district lines are drawn in the way that is in the best interest of this county and for the members of the citizens of this county to provide input to the supervisors so they can consider the criteria as they deliberate on how the line should be drawn. Are there any comments related to the criteria?
Well, I'll comment that way. I would like to shift it to what we are
here for.
Well, I guess so. I guess if we're beating that horse, that's a dead horse. My name's John Lewis. I'm a constable out of District 4, and we've got to lose, it looks like at least 15,000, 14 to 16,000 people. And, you know, the way, I guess you're asking how we want district lines. Me living it, you know, we have the integrity of a large city, Clinton, keeping it together. And Clinton, Raymond together. I know Byron's lost some of their territory to the city of Jackson. But, you know, personally, I'd like to see keeping Clinton and Raymond together. And I don't know where that would put us number-wise. Clinton, Raymond, and, we do have Learned in that, but we've got a lot to lose. And, you know, that's where I'm gonna say, I'd like to see that district grow down to, I don't know where 3 and 5 want to grow to in relations to that. You know, I'd like to hear other elected officials out of those districts talk what they like to see. What do they want?
So about the paraphrase, you would like to see Clinton be maintained as a whole, as a community of interest?
Yes. Clinton.
And that if possible, keep Raymond a part of that community of interest?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'd just like to go on record, echo what he said as a member, as a citizen of Clinton, last redistricting in the state legislature, Clinton got carved up pretty good where we have, I believe, 5 different representatives, and we believe in Clinton that dilutes our representation in government. We would like to see that in the county level of government, that the city of Clinton in our trade area, which we do consider Raymond and slightly west of Clinton, be kept contiguous in this process.
Thank you.
okay.
Ryan Tracy, excuse me, thank you.
Can you give your name again?
Yeah, Ryan Tracy.
On that line, I'd like to see us follow all those guidelines that Derek, you referred to, that the courts have ruled, keeping community of interest, that you don't change any more than you have to change. If you got a boundary that doesn't require changing, you don't change it because that's for the good of the voters. You don't change any more than you have to change because that's for the good of the voters. Absolutely that you don't split precincts. I think you can draw this whole thing without splitting precincts. I think this is one of the things that those that deal with this, that you maintain the communities of interest better than we've even done in the last census. I think you can do it again, but I think what they're talking about over in the Clinton Raymond area, the same in Northeast Jackson's the same. You know, that the number one district doesn't look like it needs to change any. Basically, I mean, it's got a couple of thousand people you could take off. But follow all those guidelines that have come out of what these court rulings that you're talking about were, maintaining community of interest. Granted that you don't draw out the incumbents that we can keep from it. I would like to know what Mr. Marshall said, that you've got to have the plan before you can get qualifying deadlines, so we don't draw out the challengers either. I mean, that's going to be an important part of it. I think people ought to realize is the reason to delay this process. But just follow all those guidelines that are there. It's an easy thing to do. I mean, it's where you got to draw and pick it up. You can move 3 or 4 precincts around and make it where everybody, I think that all the existing board members will be happy with it. It's not that complicated a process to get there.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
I would like to see, for instance, in Northeast Jackson, the neighborhoods that are contiguous to each other, that more or less have the same character, and we do a lot of things together. I would like to see those kept together, not split. For example, the Eastover neighborhood and the Northeast neighborhood, which we call leftover, because, you know, we're not Eastover, we're just the leftover. And then there's some others like Sherwood Park, further on down. I would like to see those kept together.
Okay.
What were the criteria for 2000?
I didn't conduct the redistricting for 2000, and after 10 years, you always want to go back and revisit it and set new criteria if necessary and keep them always intact.
But just like you'll do your redistricting from the maps that were drawn up there, we would move left, right, or stay on top of the criteria that we used in 2000. That wouldn't change that much, would it?
That is the wisdom of this board. They have the discretion to redraw the plan as close as it exists. They have the discretion to completely throw out what exists and create new plans. It is truly the discretion of this body to do either or.
So we could have 5 completely new districts?
It is completely discretion of this body how the ultimate plan will look.
And the criteria for creating these new districts?
The criteria must comply with both federal and state law and other criteria that this body established. At this time, this body is seeking input so they can determine if there are additional criteria they would like to establish. The final plan, it will be the wisdom of the 5 members of this board.
I understand all that, but I still would like to know what the criteria that the wisdom was based on for 2000.
That would have to be something that this body would have to go back and research if they find necessary for them to move forward, or if a request is made for that. Excuse me, what's your name?
Randy, Mike.
Mr. Johnson, my name is Gerald Kusha again, and the question that I have is, as I understand what you're saying, the wisdom of this body is who will create the prerequisites for the redistricting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
When this body exercises that discretion, will those criteria be published? And if so, where will they be published and made available for people to look at?
If there are publishable criteria, then this body will use their normal means of publishing any other document or information that they would use. If in fact there are new or additional criteria established outside of established criteria that has been established by the U.S. Constitution, our Congress, or state law.
Well, that's my question, sir, is when will that be done? How long after this body exercises that discretion will we, as tax-paying citizens of Hinds County, see what our Board of Supervisors has in fact come up with?
Well, as I stated earlier, it will be done through the regular means by which this body communicates to the public their actions and any other criteria they establish for all operation of the county.
This board has to abide by state law. We are an arm of state government. What that says to you is that when we take any action in a public setting, to answer your question, there will be additional meetings. We have to do it in a public forum as we're doing it here now.
Well,
And we should have probably a public forum. Now that we've had this meeting, we have not, I as a president of the board have not set that meeting, but I'm contemplating that we'll meet again on Monday of next week.
well, sir, in all due respect, that kind of begs the question. Much like this meeting, and I asked earlier in the meeting when and where were the notices published for this meeting, and I'm not sure that I ever heard a correct answer. I heard all kinds of things. My question to you, sir, and my question to you, Mr. Johnson, is can the taxpayers of Hinds County be assured that we will in fact receive those criteria according to Mississippi law?
And we do it by Mississippi law. However, and I'm a little bit shocked even myself that we did not put it on the web. We put our meetings on the web, and we posted in the public
Not this time.
This one posted.
This was not posted, but look this morning.
Not on either bulletin.
Not this time.
Not on either bulletin board, no, sir.
On bulletin boards, and then we in
No, it
the
wasn't.
paper.
This one on either one.
Okay.
No, it wasn't in Raymond. It wasn't in any one of the three. I checked them all today.
So again,
And I came to Ms. Hobson Calhoun myself and pointed it out to her during y'all's meeting this morning. So it was
So
nowhere
one on the
posted.
web and one on the bulletin board, your normal way of notifying the public this meeting, which is why some of us are a little concerned. We walk in this meeting that we don't have any maps, we don't have anything, we don't have any information, and there wasn't any notification put out about the meeting, except maybe in the Jackson Advocate. Free press. And the free press.
I may get with you on that. I'm almost positive that there were meetings posted in Clarendale and Jackson Advocate.
You're also sure it was on the web and on the bulletin boards too, George, but it wasn't.
But I was just telling you the normal process that happens. Our board meetings, that is the way we post our board meetings.
And we will assure any subsequent meetings are.
Well, that's awful good since we comply with state law here.
We believe we did initially, however, since this issue has been raised and brought to the board's attention, we will ensure that any gap or loopholes will be closed.
Mr. President, would this not, Mr. Johnson, would this not be an official hearing if the appropriate notifications of this hearing were not properly done? If it turns out that it was not properly done by posting in the courthouse in the usual places and in 3 papers. Would you consider this not being an official hearing?
But, Mr. President, the only requirement that the county have is to post a notice of public hearing in the general circulations that they normally post public hearings. In fact, the Jackson Advocate is a publication that this county has approved as a circulation in which they post notices of the county. In fact, this hearing was posted, although many of you may not subscribe, read, or seen the article in the Jackson Advocate, it was posted there. If you would like proof of publication, you can request that from the county. This is...
Mr. Johnson, I hear you clearly. I'm just saying, but in terms of the president of the council is concerned, he considers, as he thinks it was done, that the clerk and ledger is part of that procedure.
No, sir, no, sir. There has been, the county does not believe that there is any violation. However, this is a public hearing. You're free to raise any issues that you have. And if the concern is notification to the public, the board hears you. And the board is willing to do whatever else is necessary to make sure that more members of the public are notified. It's not saying that it's required by law, but we want the public to be notified. We want as much input as we can in Hinds County. We want all citizens to feel that they are a part of this process. And so if that's something that's been raised by this body of people who are here today, we will commit to do those additional things above and beyond what the law requires to ensure that we have all the input.
That was Mr. Cush's question over here that he didn't get answered that way, Crystal. Thank you. His question was, when is this going to happen and how do we know about it? And the answer was, we'll do it in the normal way. Well, you just said we're not going to do it the normal way. We'd like to know which one. I think your question was, when these criteria get established and when they are established, how are we going to know? And George's answer was, we could do it in the normal way and whatever. Well, the normal way didn't get the notice out evidently. Because the normal way did put it on the web, and the normal way didn't put it on the bulletin board, and the normal way we don't really know which papers it's put in. His question was, when you get ready to establish these criteria, and I disagree with Terry, no, this board has to establish some actual criteria. Yes, you've got constitutional guidelines, but they have to establish some actual criteria by which to redistrict, and they have to put it on the minutes when they do it. How are we going to know when that's going to happen?
I don't believe the board has set a meeting as of yet. However, we anticipate based on Mr. Smith's comments that meeting may come on Monday.
On Monday?
Yes, sir.
Normal board meeting
And we'll
time?
make sure that...
It's not a normal board meeting, so it would be a special board.
Okay.
And we'll make sure, under all circumstances, and usually, and when I said, I know it went in the advocate. However, in a lot of instances on bids and things of that nature, we will go beyond the call of duty and to put it in another paper. And I'm of the opinion that we did vote to put not only in the regular circulation, we have a circulation, it moves from one paper to another. And when we have that circulation, we'll also go to another circulation, which in this case would have been declaration. And we try to do that to make sure that people, additional people will get the notice and be able to participate. Because that is exactly what we want, is participation. Yes.
Yes, sir. I'm Julia Hodges, and I'm from Madison County, but I did go to their Board of Supervisors meeting this morning. And when people were talking about a map, just for guidelines, they had 2 huge maps that were color-coded. And you could go and you could look at these maps, and it's not that hard to print out. So these people, there may be some people in here that truly do not know where the district line for 2 is, or they don't know where the lines for 3 are. And they can go and look and go, okay, well, here's how it's going along. Oh, I know where this street is because there's the Kroger there. It's very, very simple, and it was a great help for me because I can go and I go, where's District 2? Oh, it's this little section over here. Where's District 4? It's this big section here. It's not that hard. You can print those up, put them on 2 big old things, have them up here, and these people can look at it and they can truly say, That's District 4, District 3, District 2. It's a very easy thing. It would be very
As we bring the
easy.
meeting to a close, are there any Hinds County residents?
Excuse me, I've got a question. Wait a second. Whoa! I've got a question. Wait a second, I'm a resident, I've got a question.
One second,
Show her some
one second.
respect.
Are there any Hinds County residents who would like to have input on the criteria and the consideration this board should consider in drafting the new plan? I think the concerns have been heard by the board as expressed by the board attorney. I believe that if there are any other additional concerns, that the board attorney and the members of the board will be willing to hear those. But the purpose of this meeting is to receive input on how the plan should be drafted. Are there any input concerning how the plan should be drafted?
Yes, Mr. Johnson. Jimmy Hendricks here, and I'm a Hinds County resident. We would love to have some input. We would love to tell you what we think. We're in a big building here. Why can't somebody go get a map from another room?
1 second.
We're in the Chancery Clerk building.
I have maps of the existing lines.
I did.
I guess that's
Yeah.
my problem. I expected.
My name is
something
Joe
like
Lauderdale.
Junior was talking about
Hinds County
Madison.
resident. Have been since 1971. Okay? Never moved to own a business here. I used to be a county supervisor in District 1, the district that Mr. Graham holds right now. Things have really changed. I've been through some other districting meetings in the past. I'm kind of old, you know. This one is different. This one is, I'm going to touch on a few things because this is what I consider criteria. First thing, our budget, we have a very small cushion. It's almost probably illegal. Okay? The small amount of money is left. Really gone away. You can read, when you get the census data, all the decrease in residents that we've had, black and white. Well, they moved, okay? That's where a lot of our money has gone. You know, tax money. I don't think anybody can doubt that or argue that point, okay? It seems like we're digging a hole, and the Board of Supervisors are our county leaders, okay? People look up to you. People want you to be right above board, not secret stuff, not, especially now, spending more than this redistricting should really cost when we have other options. And I'm very familiar with the professional services contracts that the board is empowered to do. Okay, I know that. But you've passed up a recognized authority on redistricting because it's not a complicated thing to do. But what you want to do is be fair to the citizens and not have it cloaked in secrecy on this. Another area, Mr. Johnson, pardon me for saying this, but what if I had somebody, what if we picked somebody from the Ku Klux Klan to do this plan? What would the majority of the citizens say in Hinds County? Okay? In other words, it's not a nice open plan that I'm getting the impression that we're going to get. Okay? I think it's expensive, and the time, you know, you've heard all that. I won't rehash yet about the people that don't know what district they're going to be in. You know, here we go. This 1 week's the qualifying date. I mean, it's just not the time frame won't fit. And here we are going to have this to elect the most important leaders in our county, and we're treating it like it's sweeping something under a rug. You know, or this is what you got to get. But we might could do that this time, but it's going to be bad. You know, it's not going to put our board in very good stead with a lot of the citizens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would like to make a suggestion, and that suggestion is that since we are in the 21st century, that besides using the public newspapers about posting your meetings, that you put it on your website, which most people do. And I think we are probably paying for that website, and it probably won't cost any more money to give us plenty of notices by way of the website. Thank you.
We'll do that, thank you. Yes.
I'd like to make a request, and it's my understanding that Mr. Johnson said that he could present you with a breakdown by precinct of the same thing that he has here, and if he would do so in a rapid way, where it would be posted on the website tomorrow, so everybody can have access to see what the breakdown is by precinct through the website. I don't think that's asking an awful lot of anything.
That's a good idea. How long would you think it would take to get that, and then we could post it on the?
A switch of a button.
It wouldn't take long on my part, it all depends on how long it would take to load on the website.
All they have to do is scan it in.
We can scan it in. That's a good idea. I certainly wouldn't mind doing that as soon as he can get us that information.
So we can probably look at that tomorrow?
You think we could have it, today is what, Tuesday? We should be able to get that done, maybe by Wednesday or Thursday?
Yeah, as soon as I have it ready, I'll provide it for you.
Okay, we'll make sure that's done.
I'm sure it's in an Excel form that you just break out, so as quickly as possible.
Okay. All right, then, do we have any other that want to speak on the criteria?
Hey, I got one more question for you. Your deviation percent does that allow us to deviate 10% off of the norm of 49,057, or did you say the deviation is from between the smallest and largest?
No,
Tell me what that means.
it's a deviation off the norm.
Okay.
That the smallest district from the norm cannot be any smaller than 10% of the largest district over the norm.
Isn't that basically 5% either way of the norm?
10% up and down off the norm.
Right.
5%.
If 49,000 was
That means five.
the norm, it cannot deviate more than 10%
from that
when you add the
norm.
highest and the lowest. It cannot be greater than 10% deviation.
Basically, 2,500 people below the 49, and 2,500 above the 49.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I just want to ask this question. We're not discussing, we're not here criteria.
Your name and,
My name is Jamel Park, Hinds County Election Commissioner, District 3. My question to Mr. Johnson is that was not your qualifications and your experience and your redistricting approved by the Board of Supervisors for Hinds County?
It's already been established.
I asked him the question.
Please let him answer.
I understand, but it's already been
Mr.
established.
Clark, it was, upon me submitting information, the board reviewed it and determined that I will be the person representing the county.
okay. Any other
So what's the point?
comments that any regarding the criteria?
I can't.
Not. Thank you everybody for coming. We will certainly do a much better job of making sure that, that we have, informed the public. That's one thing I'm very familiar with and want to make sure that it happens. And, we will try to get, if you can get this information from Mr. Johnson, we'll make sure that we get, by precinct on the web, as soon as possible. I don't know whether it's tomorrow, Thursday, when.
Ask for the list of persons, the list that was circulated.
Here it is.
Oh, she's got that list, okay. All right, thank y'all very much. And
Thank you.
any